John Miller was born on June 29, 1941, in Failsworth, Greater Manchester, England. Miller was trained as a wrestler by Billy Robinson and George Kidd. Miller made his pro wrestling debut in June 1958 under the name Johnny Saint. On November 3, 1976, Johnny Saint started his run as World Lightweight Champion after beating Jim Breaks in the final of a tournament that was held after Saint's mentor, George Kidd, had vacated the title upon his retirement. Saint held the title for a long time, in spite of Steve Gray proving to be an amazing tough challenger, who even beat Saint in two non-title matches. Saint would end up holding the World Lightweight title on 10 occasions during his career. Johnny Saint was a great technician who always seemed to have a counter for every counter, and his matches are great examples of excellent displays of the British wrestling style during his prime years, the 1970s and 1980s. After Saint had appeared numerous times on World of Sport Wrestling on ITV, which was a show that broadcasted the top bouts from Britain, mainly from the Joint Promotion League, Saint also started appearing on Reslo TV in 1982. Reslo was a TV show mainly broadcast in Welsh that featured wrestling matches, promoted by Orig Williams in Wales. Saint returned several times to the Reslo TV shows and was a perfect fit, since during the early days of Reslo, the style was oftentimes quite similar to the classic World of Sport Wrestling style, depending on which matches you're watching, of course. Johnny Saint was a great technical wrestler who uplifted the match quality of each match he was involved in. If he was facing a top-notch opponent, for example Steve Gray or Ken Joyce, he would be able to give the crowd a match that featured some of the most awesome technical wrestling they had ever seen. If he was facing a more character-driven wrestler, for example Jim Breaks or Mick McManus, or simply a lesser-known wrestler with less credentials, Saint would be able to uplift the quality of those matches by giving the crowd always something worthwhile, in spite of the opponent not being quite on the highest level. Saint's amazing display of intense counter wrestling, which featured seemingly a counter for every counter, in combination with a certain level of urgency and his ability to put over the idea that he was trying his best to be the best wrestler he could be, made him truly an all-time great professional wrestler. Johnny Saint spent most of his career in the United Kingdom. Saint made his Japanese wrestling debut in July 1996 when he wrestled on a tour for Michinoku Pro. Saint retired from professional wrestling on October 10, 1996 after wrestling Naohiro Hoshikawa at Michinoku Pro's These Days show, which was a show in Tokyo that featured the final match of another legendary English wrestler, the Dynamite Kid. However, like most wrestling retirement matches, it wasn't his actual final match. Johnny Saint would eventually come out of retirement to return to the ring to wrestle several matches, including a match against Johnny Kidd in 2007. Saint made his American wrestling debut in 2009 when he appeared in CHIKARA. His actual final wrestling match took place in 2015. Saint currently lives in Wales. Many people have claimed to be a man of 1,000 or even 1,004 holds. But if one man truly deserves the name, the man of 1,000 holds, it's Johnny Saint. This man knew a counter for every counter, and he knew how to confuse and outdo his opponents through his dazzling display of technical wrestling. That's why he almost never needed to break the rules. He was relatively small, at approximately 5'7" and 154 pounds, but his tremendous wrestling ability and high work rate helped him turn the lightweight division into arguably the most entertaining division to watch during his prime, no matter whether he was the champion or the challenger. My overall conclusion of Johnny Saint's career is as follows. Johnny Saint's 5 best years were 1979, 1980, 1981, 1982, and 1983, which was when he was in his late 30s, early 40s. By this point, he had really perfected the role as the lightweight champion, and he had perfected his role as the veteran who knew a counter for every counter. After watching more than 40 matches of Johnny Saint's career, it can be safely said that he's arguably the second best British wrestler in the history of pro wrestling, second only to Dynamite Kid. And Mark Rocco would be a close third, and Marty Jones possibly a close fourth. If we purely look at wrestling from Great Britain and ignore any wrestling outside of Great Britain, Japan, Canada, United States, etc., then we can safely say that Johnny Saint is the best wrestler in the history of British pro wrestling, as no wrestler during the heyday of available British wrestling TV was such a consistent high-quality in-ring performer as Saint was. Even though Saint mainly wrestled in the United Kingdom for the majority of his career, and even though he mainly wrestled in a typical World of Sports wrestling style, his great display of technical wrestling against a variety of opponents made him a wrestler who was truly enjoyable to watch for many years. Saint would enhance the in-ring quality of the product shown on World of Sport Wrestling, and he would help World of Sport Wrestling to maintain a certain standard of excellence. After Steve Gray had a series of matches with Saint, Gray's overall in-ring work improved significantly. When Saint started wrestling in Wales in the early and mid-1980s, he also enhanced the in-ring quality of the product shown on Reslo TV. No matter who he was facing, Saint's work would always elevate the quality of the match. Of course, sometimes his opponents were better than other times, and sometimes they fit his style better than other times, but he'd always make the effort to have the best match possible under the circumstances. Here is a list of Johnny Saint's best matches.